The information surrounding coronavirus seems to be changing constantly, and we're trying to stay ahead of it for you every single morning. Numbers continue to climb, of course, and so we want to address some of the most common questions that keep surfacing almost on a daily basis. And we spoke to Dr. Murray Cohen. He's an epidemiologist. He specializes in infectious diseases. He's a former CDC employee, so Dr. Cohen knows exactly what he's talking about on this topic. There's a major question out there these days that we are seeing more recently. If you get COVID-19 once, can you get it again?
No, you cannot. You're immune. And we base that on one study reported out of a laboratory in China with macaques, New World monkeys, where they infected the monkeys, let the monkeys recover, and then tried to reinfect them, and they could not reinfect them. This is what we would expect with a virus of this type, and that's at least one pretty strong study to demonstrate what we expect. So, no, in fact, that's going to be ultimately how we get out of this thing, is that enough people will get infected, even subclinical, mild infections, may not even know it, and become immune, and then the virus will have fewer and fewer people to attack.
So, Christina, bottom line is no, you can't get it twice.
Okay, that's good.
And maybe the way we get out of this is if enough of us get it and then we build up immunity and it goes away naturally.
Like the chicken pox.
Eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, but who knows the time frame on that?
Right. I know. Dr. Cohen says it is so hard to tell exactly when someone becomes contagious with the virus due to the lack of symptoms in some cases. He also explains why a fever is one of the first symptoms, and if you are contagious at that point.
It's difficult to quantify. That's because we talk about subclinical or asymptomatic contagion. You know, the virus is very stealth, and it has evolved for one purpose only, and that's to propagate itself. One of the very first symptoms is a slightly elevated fever, because the immune system, when it kicks into action, that's one of the first functions that it does. It raises the temperature so that it creates an environment that's less viable for any invading pathogen. So when we're taking people's temperatures as a screening device to see, might they be infected even though they feel fine and don't show any other symptoms, we tend to be looking for 99.5. Can they be contagious during that time? Yes. When did they start being contagious? We don't know.
There's a lot we don't know still. I mean, let's face it, Dr. Cohen knows exactly what he's talking about. Coming up, by the way, at 8:17, we're going to talk to him more about why it's taking so long for the tests, for people to get tested.
Oh, that is such a question that people are wanting to know about. I mean, there's a drive-through testing site at Cal Expo, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but there's like a 3-week wait.
To get there,
yeah.
Even if you qualify to get there.
Even if you qualify to take the test, which not everyone does.
So if you want to hear that, it's at 8:17. So we know a lot of you have a lot of questions about coronavirus because, look, the definitions of what's going on out there, they're changing all the time. By the way, a couple of days ago, I think it was, we encouraged people to give us a call, pound 250, say open mic, and then give us your question that you have about coronavirus.
Yeah, we got lots of calls.
So we got a lot of calls, and we said, okay, we're going to get an expert in here to answer some of those questions. And the expert we found is Dr. Murray Cohen, and this guy knows what he's talking about. He's an epidemiologist. He specializes in infectious diseases, former CDC employee, so he is a real expert. So first of all, we asked him about testing. That was one of the big questions we got. What are they looking for, number one, and why is there such a shortage of these tests right now?
The most aggravating thing to me about this outbreak, the United States is the only country with a serious outbreak that is not doing antigen testing, and I do not know why. It's a different kind of test. What we do now, antibody testing is being done with like home test kits. It takes 15 minutes. They're cheap. They're easy. But none of them have been approved by the FDA, so they're not being done in the United States. We will be doing it, but we should be doing this widespread, just like, say, the way we do flu shots, where you can get them at your pharmacy, you can get them at LabCorp, you can get them at your doctor's offices. Just push these things out and let everybody go get tested. Because if you test positive with antibody, that's a good thing. That means you probably aren't infected now, but you have been infected. And that goes back to our first question. That means you're immune. So everything you have to think about doing to control your own movements are from policy perspectives. Who are we going to put back out in the workforce, for example? If we know that you're antibody positive, you're safe from the coronavirus.
Why do I get the feeling he's not the only one frustrated by the fact that there is a home testing kit available that takes 15 minutes and the FDA hasn't approved it?
So I've done a fair amount of reporting on medical devices and drugs, and the FDA is the slowest agency when it comes to approving anything.
Okay, we want them to be careful. I get that.
Well, you do, because we have had problems with devices and drugs in this country that have caused people harm. But they are extremely slow. It's multiple hearings, multiple committee. And you would think someone could cut the red tape in this situation to get these test kits, because they're already in Europe. Those test kits are all over the world. And that's typical because a lot of drugs and devices are approved overseas before they're approved here.
Right. Especially when you hear somebody like Dr. Cohen say, I'm frustrated by this too.
Right. So we also asked him about self-isolation. Does it really work? He says strongly yes, and he offered us this hopeful reminder.
It's about the only thing we've got going for us right now. And we know that because it's when we say self-isolation, basically just isolation, social distancing, quarantine, separating from people. This is what finally broke the outbreak in China, the very first one in Wuhan. It's what worked in Singapore, and it's what worked in Korea. In the absence of any therapeutic, any drugs to treat, or any vaccine, we don't have much to work with. And so this social isolation is our most effective intervention strategy right now. And that's why it's really important. Painful as it is, uncomfortable as it is, we need to do this at least for a couple more weeks till we get a handle on where this virus is and where it's going.
And worldwide, there's evidence of that. Italy and Spain, they weren't so good at isolation. They now top the list in deaths. 7,500 this morning in Italy. 4,000. Spain has now topped 4,000 deaths.
Right. Well, and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said that isolation is working in his state. Now, even though there have been a number, we're seeing the numbers spike right now, he's saying the admissions to hospitals have tamped down a little bit,
right,
and they believe it is due to social isolation.
I mean, this morning when we got into work, their number was at 355 deaths in New York State.
Well, yeah, and we knew that was going to spike because all the testing, and there are more people now using that system. But he says the social isolation, we're not going to see the results of it for another week or so, but it is working.